Let's take a look at how we can create this visualization titled Rate of New Entrepreneurs. This is part of the Kaufman Indicators of Entrepreneurship, and it has across each of the states in the United States a metric, which is the rate of new employer business actualization. That is the percentage of all new businesses that make a first payroll within 8 quarters of a business application. Now, this is shown as a cartogram, a map which is slightly distorted from the real map. And the reason this helps is because we want to treat all states equally. And just because Hawaii is smaller than California, we don't want it to have a much smaller visual proportion. So that's an example of a cartogram, and we are going to create this cartogram using PowerPoint in SlideSense. So let's start with this tutorial. The first thing is to create a template, and I'm going to download this template, and also, of course, to take the data set. I'm downloading the data set. I have both of these, in fact, in my local folder, which let's take a quick look at. So this source template has, I'll open it and show it to you in PowerPoint, has all of the 50 states in the US laid out simply as rectangles. And if I go to selection pane, you'll also see that each of these is given is accessible through a particular rectangle number, rectangle 45, 46, etc. But some of these shapes you'll notice, like let's say the title, this is actually called the title, and you can change the shape name. This is called subtitle, caption, etc. It's possible for us to pick any shape and rename it to something that we want, which will make it easier for us to access it in SlideSense. But anyway, what we've done here is created something in PowerPoint, and we are now going to start changing attributes from data. Let's take a quick look at how we do that. The second step is the data. The data is literally from the Kaufman data downloads page. We've downloaded the data set, and to give you a sense of what that data looks like, let's open this CSV file in Excel. We have for each of the, well, countries, in this case, the country is just the US. We have a, let's see, what are the values here? Okay. Actually, we have this down at a state level. So for each state name, and we can ignore US because that's at an aggregate level, what we have is for a given year, so from 96 all the way down to 2019, we have the metric that we were looking for, which is the rate of new entrepreneurs. That happens to be the column RNE. That's a number between 0 and 1. So we can choose to use these three columns. I'm just going to color code them for our reference. The code, which tells us which state we are looking at. The second column is the year. And the third column is the rate of new entrepreneurs. What we want to do is take those metrics and start plotting them. Let's see, where did this go? Yeah, so we'll start plotting them kind of like this. For that, the first step is to set up the rules. Now, we set up the rules using a file called grammix.yaml. So I'm going to open the editor and create grammix.yaml file, which of course you can also do by just saying file new and say file save as grammix.yaml. So I'm going to do that. Save the old one. Now, in this, it says copy this content, these rules. So I'm just going to do that blindly and then talk you through each one of these. So these are a set of instructions to tell SlideSense that we are creating a notional URL, pptx handler / entrepreneurship, where if somebody accesses this URL, this page, which is at /output.pptx, then run it through a pptx handler, and using version 2 of the API, take this particular source template and apply this particular data set. Now we haven't told it how to apply the data set. That's not yet there, and that's going to be the set of rules that we create. But if we just told it this, all we have told it is take this template, take the data, and generate an output.pptx. There are two ways of running this. The quicker way of running this is in the folder that has your gramx.yaml, and of course, presumably the other files as well. You run SlideSense. What this does is runs the SlideSense engine from the command line instead of setting it up as a web server. And what we get as an output file is exactly the same thing as the template, no changes. Now let's start applying the rules. We'll set up a rule that copies the slide for each year. What we want is one slide that shows the data for, say, the year 2000, another for the year 2001, and so on. So let's copy the rules and paste them. Now you see that it creates a rules section which uses a command copy slide, which groups the data by year and then creates another data set called RNE. Now let's first look at the output and then see how this works. This time when I run SlideSense, it opens the output presentation. But you'll notice that this is not the only slide. There are multiple slides. And while the slides have the same content, we haven't told SlideSense how to change the content. You'll notice that there are a total of 24 slides here. And that's exactly the number of years that we have in the data set. If you look at the number of distinct years, it's from 1996 to 2019 inclusive, which is 24 years. So we've created 24 slides, one for each year. How did we do that? We have a rule that says copy the slide this many times, where we take the data. Our data comes from data.csv and we group it by year. So it's created subgroups. And for each of these subgroups, we have copied the slide once. So even if we didn't have this next line, this is actually used for something a little bit later. I'll explain that in a bit. Just this portion, if we run SlideSense, will create an output which has 24 slides. Let's validate that. Yep, there are 24 slides. What we're doing here, however, is saying that I want to access the contents of this data a little more conveniently. Specifically, what we're saying is take the copied slides value. Now, what is the copied slides value? Well, if you're grouping by year, let's pick a year, let's say 2019. This is what the data set looks like. What it's saying is take the value, that is what we see here, and then group it further by code. So we have groups for each one of these. So if I took, let's say California, this is the data set that I get for California for 2019. And what we're saying is take the RNE column, and in case there are multiple rows for California for the year 2019, take the first row. And if it's missing, there may be missing values, then fill it with 0. What that means is that, for example, are there any missing values? Yeah, it turns out that there are missing values. If I just look at the blanks. So we don't have data for Alabama in 1996, which let's just assume that it means it's 0. We also don't have data for Wyoming in 1997. Let's assume that that is 0. So we fill it with 0. And now the variable RNE can be used in the rest of the application to hold the rate of new entrepreneurs for a given year for a given state. So that's what this convenience variable does for us. So how do we access it? If we set RNE of CA for any slide, then it will have the rate of new entrepreneurs for California defaulted to 0. And if there are multiple rows, it will pick up the first row. So now let's do the next step. What we'll do is change the color of each of these rectangle shapes so that it matches all the shape names that start with the rectangle. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the template, there are, I mentioned a whole bunch of shape names that you saw on the right-hand side. That's rectangle 87, 86, 82, 76. I just created a whole bunch of these rectangle shapes. What we're saying is take any of these rectangle shapes. Whenever someone selects one of these, we want to figure out what is the text inside that, figure out which state it is, and put in the RNE values there. That's what we're going to do. So We say, take all the shapes called rectangle and fill them using a particular rule. Let's copy it, paste it as before, see the output, and then we will walk through how it works. So I'm running SlideSense. This is the output, and let's move it across here. So I guess the first few years, these are different slides now. Unfortunately, we haven't yet changed the year number, so we'll do that in a bit. But you'll see that the colors are starting to change, and the colors are changing based on a legend that we had created in the template. If it's less than 0.2%, 0.2 to 0.29%, etc., then choose these colors. Now, what exactly does the rule say that allows this to happen? It says choose accent 1 plus 40% if the RNE of the shape text, the shape text is the state name. So this is a shape. Its text is AK. So RNE of that shape text will be the rate of new entrepreneurs of Arkansas. If that's less than 0.2%, so it's 0. If that's less than 0.002 or less than 0.003 or 0.004, we use a set of accent colors. Now, how do these accent colors come about? Well, any shape in PowerPoint can have a color from an accent 1 or an accent 2 or an accent 3 or so on. Now, the beauty of these accents is that if you decide to change in the design the color scheme, so let's customize the colors here. So accent 1, I don't want a blue. I want my own shade of orange, let's say. And if I save it, you'll notice that it's changed right across the entire presentation. If I want this to be a shade of green instead, let's do that. Make it a shade of this green. And that again changes it right across. So theming becomes very easy when we use accent colors, but we're going to stick to the blue accent color for no reason. And we find that what we've managed to do is fill in the colors properly. However, we also want to change the text here. We want to add the percentage here. So let's copy paste this output. Close the output here. And run SlideSense again. As always, we'll see the output and then I'll explain how it works. So now you have, let's go to some of the more interesting years. Yeah, we have California with a 0.34, Utah with a 0.3%, and so on. Oh, sorry, I said AK was Arkansas. It looks like it's Alaska. What we just did was we said the text should be, and we put in something somewhat complex here. Let's explain. We said, let's create a paragraph. The paragraph should contain whatever the shape text originally was. Just take the original shapes text, put it in there. But after that, add another paragraph, a second paragraph. And this paragraph will contain an anchor. Now, this kind of looks like HTML, but it's not really HTML. A basically means a run, any part, and the equivalent in HTML would be span, where the bold, this part is not bold. Now, the original template has the entire block in bold, but we want this run not in bold with a smaller font size, an 8-point font size. And the contents should be the RNE of the shape text, which is exactly the same number we've been using for rate of entrepreneurs, and formatted as a percentage with 2 decimal places. So which is why we get 0.36% and 0.21% and so on. So this is how we can put in custom formatting for text. Let's go further. We still have a few more things to do. Now, let's change the caption of every slide. So we see by state 2019 in every slide, but the year is actually different. So let's change that caption and get that text to by state copy.key. Now, what exactly are these variables? Shape, copy, etc. Well, when we do a copy slide, it automatically creates a new variable. That variable is called copy. It has a key which is the same as whatever we are grouping by. It has a value which is the same of the result of the group by. For example, let's open the data set. Since I grouped by year, copy.key would always have, let's say, if in one slide, the year was 1999, then copy.key would be the string 1999 or the number 1999, and copy.val would be this entire data frame. We're using copy.val here. Shape, incidentally, always refers to whatever shape we are currently applying this on. So we said rectangle star. So for every rectangle, that rectangle will be the shape object. We said caption. So here, if we use shape, then shape would be the caption shape, and it will have an attribute called text that has the text in that shape. So let's take a look at what this does. Now I'm going to show you something, an error that you might encounter. I'm going to run SlideSense, and it says permission denied output.pptx. What it's saying is I tried saving output.pptx, but I couldn't. That's because we still have output.pptx open in PowerPoint. So we've got to close the output. It's all right if you have the template open, but if it's trying to write into the output, then you've got to have the output closed. Otherwise, it can't override it. So now you'll see that the state name is changing. By state, it goes across the years. So I can actually see what the results are like in a given year. So that is our final configuration. Now, if you look at how this the output file looks in slideshow mode, in 1996, we don't really have any data, or the numbers were actually 0%, same in 97, but in 98, things were looking good. Now let's start focusing on any one state. Let's take Alaska, 0.6%, 0.5%. It's starting to dip, but it's still more or less doing fine. But in 2006, it actually dips below the 0.4% mark, further slipping, and then starts to recover and gets to the 0.4% by 2010. Dipped further, but rose up and is pretty strong by 2014, very strong in 2015, dips a bit in 2016, dips further in 2017, but doesn't go below the 0.4% mark, rises up again, and in 2019, it's doing pretty strong. So what we did was looked at the story of Alaska, and you can easily take a similar story for any of the other states, or look at it holistically and see what things were like in the US at that particular time. Hope that gives you a sense of how you can run this particular demo. The URL is learn.grammar.com/guide. Under that, you can go to the PPTX handler, within which you'll see Rate of New Entrepreneurship as a demo where all of this code is available.